Northampton County Council meeting. Mr. Goffredo, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Sempo, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown. Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Giovanni.
Present.
Mr. Goffredo.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Lott.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky. All present except Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes of August 18, 2022?
Motion.
I'll second.
Did you get that?
Just grab two names.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. There is no one that is signed up for courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. McClure, do you have a report this evening?
I do, just very quickly. Usually we're paying money out, but this week we received a bunch of money. I believe we received a check for $108,000 from PennDOT for its part of the removal of Bridge 15. It's 80-20, and that's their 80. We've also received $400,000 approximately of our opioid money from the lawsuit that the county initiated, and we received approximately $1.1 million from the state for our security grant for elections. And I want to take this, although they didn't have a role in all of it, I want to take this opportunity to highlight DCED and specifically Rebecca Sanchez, who does grants for the county. And she provides support for the whole county with grant writing, and she's done a fabulous job. And so to that end, I'd also like to thank the district attorney for agreeing to transfer his almost $2.2 million from the lawsuit that he joined other district attorneys across the Commonwealth in against opioid manufacturers. He has granted that money to the Department of Drug and Alcohol in Northampton County. So, you know, our fentanyl plan, you heard Ms. Wondolowski earlier, we're going to hit the ground running, and everybody's going to know about the dangers of fentanyl by the time we're done. And then we're going to be funding a ton of innovative programs to, you know, save lives and then help people recover. So that's some really good news. More good news. Our Human Resources Department, and I've suggested to Ms. Cabali that she needs to come to personnel the next time there's a personnel meeting and talk about some of the different ways we are now approaching recruiting in Northampton County. So we've had a bit of a shortfall of telecommunicators at 911, and so we're filling those slots back up. And recently we advertised for a skills assessment to be a telecommunicator in Northampton County, and 200 people accessed our advertisement for the skills assessment to come and be telecommunicators in Northampton County. This is indicative, to me at least, that maybe a dam is breaking in terms of us being able to hire. So this is really good news. And to further elucidate that point, we are currently running simultaneously 2 corrections officers classes of 13 to 26. So, and there'll be another class in October, which will get us back to our full complement of corrections officers. So that tells me that people are responding to the new way we're doing our recruiting. And when Ms. Cabali does make that presentation to you, I suggest that you ask her about some of the changes we're making and some of the differences that are occurring based upon just a different way of looking at recruiting in human resources than we have in the past. And I would say that, too, we often talk about in terms of our contracts how those initial steps are too low to attract applicants. Clearly, that's not the case. I mean, clearly it's not the case in corrections. We have 2 full classes. We're going to have another class in October. It's not the case with respect to our telecommunicator position. So, I mean, facts are stubborn things, and there that is. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Myers.
Mr. McClure, you mentioned 911 center. How many did we lose?
I think we're down, with 16 or so? We're down approximately 16 telecommunicators.
Do we have any numbers of how many people have replied besides the 200 that were interested?
We're what?
We're hiring 10 in the next 2 weeks.
10 in the next 2 weeks?
Starting.
Yep, we're good. We'll get back to where we need to be. Part of the problem there is it takes so long to train.
Yeah, I got you.
Mr. Gofredo?
You said you received $1.1 million for election security?
Election integrity, I believe the legislature has
Do you have any
styled it.
intended uses for that money?
Sure, Mr. Dertinger and Elections Division have probably identified about 400,000 worth of that money that we can actually spend based on the guidelines as we understand them today. So we can't get too excited about the 1.1 because under the guidelines as they exist today, before there's any additional guidance that comes down from DCED or the registrar, the fact of the matter is we probably won't be able to use it all, but at least 400,000 of it will be helpful to us.
In any particular fashion do you guys have in mind, or is that still up for debate?
That's up for debate.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Old business, we have a public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council Authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, PA to lease approximately 2,689 rentable square feet of space at 1901 Hay Terrace, Suites UL1, UL3, and UL5 on the third floor of Easton, Pennsylvania, from KMJV LLC. Mr. Myers and Giovanni introduced this ordinance at the August 18th, 2022 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Are there any discussion points from council? Mr. Cusick.
I just had a couple. I mean, we really haven't talked about what this is about. We are moving Judge Yetter's office, I believe, from Butler Street to this location. I guess my question, I have a solicitor here. I guess my question is, what was wrong with the current location and why is it being moved?
Current location's very outdated, not very secure.
Okay, and so this one's on the third floor. Will there be elevator access for handicap?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Price-wise, are we saving money or are we paying more for this location?
I think we're paying slightly more. I can tell you in a moment. I can tell, as far as the other leases for other district justices, it's right in the middle. I'm just trying to find the old lease for, you have the,
I have
right down here. Right here.
it was $14 a square foot. We're going to 1675.
We're going to 1675, and it was the 1413.
And it's a larger facility though?
Yes.
As well, so that's why, okay.
More secure, it's larger. Yeah, the place he's in now is awful. I was just there actually a few weeks ago.
Okay. Thank you. I was just wondering why, and we hadn't really talked about it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Only about 3 blocks away.
Mr. Myers?
Just a comment on it. His old office is in that old little strip mall, which is not very secure, and I don't want to call it, it's not the best neighborhood, you know, for what we need to do there. So that's another reason why I got behind it.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky? Yes. Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Next, we have a public hearing of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, requiring, in accordance with Act 57 of 2022, the Northampton County Tax Collectors and Northampton County Tax Claim Bureau, beginning January 1st, 2023 to waive all additional charges for real estate taxes if the taxpayer complies with all the requirements as set forth herein, defining terms, providing for severability, repealer, and effective date. Mr. Gofredo and Ms. Zirinsky introduced this ordinance at August 18th, 2022 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Any discussion among council? Mr. Cusick?
Again, like, we hadn't really talked much about this, but if Mr. Barron could give us a short explanation as to what this is about, I'd appreciate it for our audience at home.
Dr. Barron. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a constitution that says taxing law must be uniform. So therefore, when the state passes the laws with regard to these certain items, we pass them along to you to make your ordinance conform to the changes in state laws.
So how do I get my additional charges waived for real estate taxes?
Well, you'd have to be delinquent first,
Oh, I
probably, in
can't
most
do that.
cases.
That's what I said. You could try it.
I know someone who could apply. But I don't want to get into that.
That's rough.
Sorry, spoke out of turn.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Apply for a waiver.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Gofredo.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Is there any old business to discuss? Hearing and seeing none, we have new business. First, we have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Issuing a Request for Proposals Seeking Bidders to Conduct a Wage and Benefit Analysis for Northampton County." Would someone please sponsor the ordinance?
I'll sponsor your ordinance.
Mr. Gofredo, will someone co-sponsor the ordinance?
Second.
Mr. Giovanni, thank you. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the September 15th, 2022 meeting. Next, we have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Issuing a Request for Proposals Seeking Bidders to Conduct a Comprehensive Operational Study of Gracedale Nursing Home." Do I have someone to sponsor the ordinance?
I will sponsor.
Mr. Myers, do I have a co-sponsor?
I'll co-sponsor.
Mr. Cusick, indicate the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at September 15th, 2022 meeting. Next, we have the introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Compensation of Elected Officials in the County of Northampton, County Controller." Someone sponsor the ordinance?
I would like to sponsor it.
Second. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at September 15th, 2022 meeting. Introduction of an ordinance next as provided for compensation of elected officials in the County of Northampton. County Council needs a sponsor.
So be it.
Co-second.
Second.
Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the September 15th, 2022 meeting. Introduction of an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for Compensation of Elected Officials in the County of Northampton, County Executive." Someone sponsor the ordinance?
I will.
I'll second.
Whose I will carry?
Yep.
Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the September 15th, 2022 meeting. Next, we have a consideration of a grant for Shiloh Baptist Church resolution. Mr. Lot, will you please introduce?
Sure will. We went through this in economic development. I'm going to start halfway through. Whereas Greater Shiloh Church has requested funding through their NCDEDC's 2022 Grow Norco Grant Program to complete renovations of their emergency shelter for the 2022-2023 shelter season. And whereas at September 1st, 2020, County Council Economic Development Committee meeting, Greater Shiloh Church explained the need for the renovations in order to open up emergency shelter this winter season. And whereas the church budget request of $11,000 and the project description for funding consideration to support the shelter renovations are attached as Exhibit A. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Council of the County of Northampton, 1, that the requested $11,000 to support the church's shelter renovation is approved by Northampton County Council. 2, the county executive of the County of Northampton is authorized to execute the grant agreement with the applicants not to exceed the amount approved. 3, The 2022 Grow Norto Grant Fund should be utilized to support the grant. So introduced.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding this? The only question I have is that it says it's requested to support the church's shelter, and I did miss the meeting, but is the money going to the church or is it going to the development fund?
They
Because are
have,
they two separate entities?
they have a nonprofit side that I believe the presentation said that was where the money would be received.
Yeah.
It is a
I just wonder if we need to change the language to reflect that.
No, the church does have a nonprofit, which the grant will be going to, that serves as the winter shelter. They're unfortunately running up here, they tried to get in the wrong door. So if there are any other questions, they will be here momentarily.
Would you like me to defer until they get
Why
here,
don't we hold up?
council, or?
Can we hold up?
Oh, wait,
they get
so
here?
I'd like to, do
Yeah.
I need to table this, or can I just defer? Okay, I'm going to defer till later, and I'm going to take the other one out of order, if that's
Okay.
okay. Thank you for informing me of that. Next, we have the consideration of a health, safety, and welfare bond for Lehigh Valley Health Network resolution. Mr. Lott, will you introduce?
Sure. I'm going to go right to now. Therefore, it be resolved by the Northampton County Council as followed. 1, the above clauses are incorporated herein and made a part hereof this reference. 2, it is hereby determined and declared pursuant to the act that it is desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the people in the area served by the borough of the authority to undertake the financing of this project through the issuance of bonds in an aggregated principal amount not to exceed $100 million. 3, the declarations made with this respect to the project extends to the refunding bonds with respect to the projects and any additional bonds necessary to complete the projects, which may be issued by the authority, provided, however, that such declaration shall not be deemed to authorize changes increasing the scope of the project. 4, the approval of this project shall not obligate the full faith and credit or taxing authority of Northampton County or its funds in any way. 5, the proper officers and other personnel of Northampton County are hereby authorized and empowered to take all such further actions and execute additional documents as they may deem appropriate to carry out the purpose of this resolution. 6, any resolution or part of this resolution conflicting with the provisions of this resolution is hereby repealed insofar as the same affect this resolution.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding this? I have a question. I may be dumb, but, so this is in Carbon County. So why do we, as Northampton County, need to?
This is just a refinance, and we have Mr. John Brodsky, who's the Senior Vice President and Treasurer of LVHN, to answer any questions. This will also take care of the LVHN Hecktown Oaks, which is getting an improvement as well.
So that's in Northampton County.
Thank you very much for considering this, this request for our financing. We recently completed the construction of our Carbon County Hospital up in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, and this financing will primarily reimburse us for those costs. In addition, the Hecktown Oaks facility, which is in Northampton County in southern or in Easton, has 2 additional phases, Phase 2 and Phase 3, that will be included in this project, a total of about $27 million. You were participant in the financing for the Dixon City Hospital, which also included a part of financing for Hecktown Oaks. And back in 2019, you were also participant in the financing that we did for the main hospital at Hecktown Oaks. So about a third of this, a little less than a half of this project financing is for facilities based in Northampton County. So that's why we're in front of you today seeking this approval.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Heckman?
Just to her question, I appreciate it, thank you for being here. But why specifically wouldn't you have gone to Carbon County?
We are. Carbon County is acting as the primary issuer of the bonds. They're the Carbon County Hospital Authority. But since we also have projects based in Northampton County, we also have to get your approval for any time we use tax-exempt financings.
That cleared it up. Thank you.
Mr. Lott?
Yes, I believe this would actually go to Steve Barron, but do we get a percent, do we receive any compensation for agreeing with this bond?
Nothing has been discussed at that point. Typically, when you are the primary authority, there is a fee. In 2019, when we financed both our Cedar Crest facility in Lehigh County and the Hextown Oaks facility, the fees paid to Lehigh County were split. I believe you got your pro rata share of those costs. When we did our financing with you in 2020, even though we were financing the Dixon City Hospital up in Lackawanna County, that was the primary purpose of that financing. We also had a small portion that was for Hextown Oaks. Lackawanna County declined to work with us. You were willing to work with us, so you were the primary issuer, and you were paid a $200,000 fee for what was approved as a $100 million project. That's since been downsized to about $65 million. Early on in the process with Carbon, there was no discussion of fees. They did come back and say they would like a $40,000 fee for that. I think if you feel a fee is appropriate, then rather than splitting that, I would offer that we pay a pro rata share to Northampton County.
Appreciate the answer. Thank you.
So who would make that determination,
As to,
if we wanted a fee or not? I mean, I guess,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's the way thank you
all right,
for
so.
the answer. I'm sure Steve will be in contact with you.
I mean, there's things we say and there's things we don't say, so we better say, right? Any other questions or concerns?
Could I ask
Yes?
a question? And this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to somebody from LVH. And I was impressed by how fast the Hextown facility went up. I mean, it was like one day I drove and it was an empty field, and then I drove and there's this big new hospital. How's that doing out there? I'm just curious. I mean, it's an impressive structure.
Yeah, it's doing very well, and Phase 2, which you financed, was a patient tower that added 4 floors. Phase 3 was fitting out one of those floors for an ICU unit. It opened on July 1 of 2021. Almost immediately, it was over budget by about twice our estimated volume, so that's doing very well. And we're having a similar experience with our Dixon City facility and our new Carbon County Hospital that also opened in the spring. They're smaller hospitals, they're less daunting, they're more, they're one-story facilities, they look more like a retail facility, so easier to get to, less daunting than having to drive to a major. If you've been to the Cedar Crest facility, it's a big facility and easy to get lost and maybe overwhelmed, so.
Well, thank you. I was just curious. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote?
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Now we refer back to the consideration of a grant for Shiloh Baptist Church resolution, because I believe they are here to answer questions.
Yes, so we're pleased to introduce, we have Pastors Davis and Pastor Jason Vanderberg, and they did give a committee presentation at Economic Development earlier today.
Madam President and distinguished council members, hello, I'm Pastor Phil Davis, Pastor Jason Vanderberg. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Myers has his hand up.
Of course I do. Pastor Phil.
Hello,
Is
sir.
this in compliance and helping out with the homeless shelters that we already have? We're just expanding by allowing those of us at Shiloh to help those folks. That's what this is all about, correct?
Absolutely. It's been going on since for many years, 2013.
Yes, sir.
2013, we've been serving the community in that way. Yeah.
Mr. Lott?
And you set up, I'm just kind of making sure I understand this, Pastor Phil. And you set up the nonprofit to separate the church and state issue, is that correct? So we're nice and clean there with the nonprofit giving
Absolutely.
them money.
Yeah, 501c3, separate from the church. As you may know, we have the Shiloh Manor as well, which is the 58-unit senior citizens home. Separate 501c3, has its own board, oversaw by HUD. So that has been our practice for many years to make sure that there is a clean distinction between the church and the nonprofit organization.
Thank you, I just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, then, Madam President, given what the pastor has stated, I think the appropriate thing to do would be to amend the resolution. You had pointed out that on the second page, item number 1, the requested $11,000 to support the church. And I'm going to make a motion that we delete the church and replace that with the Greater Community Development Corporation.
Correct.
And that's acceptable to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we would delete the church and replace it with the Greater Community Development Corporation, which is the separate entity.
Is there anywhere else, before I accept that we need to change that language? Would it be under the first whereas as well?
Yes. Yes.
And there's
Number
several
1.
places where it says the church is requesting the
Shallow
funding as opposed to the economic. So should we just say
Well, you-
throughout the document?
In all places.
Yeah.
I think we should do in all places. That would correct the
Yes.
problem.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Mr. Myers, thank you. Discussion on the motion? Vote on the motion to amend? Mr. Myers?
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Now we'll continue discussion of the actual proposal. My understanding is that this is part of our Grow Norco funding and that you are matching funds, or the committee, the development committee is matching funding for the project, correct? So we're
Yes.
giving 50%, you're giving 50, or is it more a different split? Am I incorrect?
Yeah, we'll be giving more than 50, as we normally have done with our projects like this.
Okay. And just for clarification, for anybody who's watching and didn't attend the meeting, like myself, this is for housing. This does not benefit the church in any way, but this is for community housing and sheltering
Yes,
project.
it's a
So do you
homeless
want
shelter.
to state that?
Absolutely, yes. It's a emergency homeless shelter. Many a times, Safe Harbor gets too full and there's no place for individuals to go. We own a building across from our main sanctuary that we have done some renovations on, and since 2013, we've been housing people during the winter. In the evenings, we bring them dinner, we give them breakfast, and then we have volunteers to stay throughout the night. But we also have a few paid staff that stay there with them, and that, as I said, has been going on for 2013. We've had to stop because of COVID, but we're excited to get started again and actually start serving our community in that way again.
And what was the capacity, and what are you hoping that it will become?
So we were given a capacity of 25, but there were some exceptions that were granted by our city zoning officials during the Code Blue, which is referred to as Safe Harbor, the coldest nights of the winter. We were granted an exception, but typically our max is 25 in the building.
And that's with the renovation, that will continue to be the number, or are you looking to expand that number with the renovation?
We do have plans to go back to the city. We've believed all along that we could accommodate more than 25 folks because we do integrate bedding, full beds, and of course with COVID, having more space. So we do plan to go back to the city and expand. These renovations are uplifts to the area. Also creating some safer bathrooms. We have some things that are in need in that space. So while they don't directly relate to the number of folks who are staying, we do believe that we can have these done and also accommodate more, so.
Thank you. Mr. Myers?
Just one other question. Because we are on the south side, are we going out to look for folks to bring them in when the code blue hits?
Yes, sir. So if I may, one of the things that we've done over the years is we formed a number of partnerships. Pastor Phil has said that as Safe Harbor gets fuller, we are in constant communication. Even some of the folks from Safe Harbor come by. They'll give us a call, and we have the vans. We go out and we know some of the spots historically where folks go, and we have been very a part of picking individuals up with our vehicles and bringing them in. Years ago, we actually had a partnership with College Hill Presbyterian Church where the College Hill residents were also involved and would take part. And we hope to reintegrate that this year as well. But to answer your question, sir, yes, we absolutely do go out as a part of the mission.
I just want to make sure we are aware that they go out and actually find people who are cold and we bring them into the cold. Thank you, Pastor Vandenberg.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gafredo?
First one, thank you guys for everything you do for the community. It's truly a dying breed, what you guys do. But have you seen an uptick in homelessness over the past 2 years? Is that conforming with the national trend, or are we bucking that trend in this county?
No, sir. Just talking to folks like Jeff Post from Safe Harbor, in communication with folks in Allentown, which is not Easton, of course, but in the valley as a whole, there has been an uptick. In research, a lot of many of our homeless are folks who we have known for years. I actually heard that said earlier in the committee meeting, but it is very much a fact that there have been those who have been homeless and have been a part of the community for many years. But what we've seen recently, and we were so sorry that last year we weren't able to function, is that shelters around Bethlehem, for example, had a huge uptick. And I think it had part to do with us being closed and some other spaces sort of condensing due to pandemic. But to answer your question, sir, there has been an uptick. And unfortunately, one of the areas where there has been an uptick are in family structures. So it's not just individuals right now who are homeless, but we have seen many with children. And we do have a due diligence, of course, child line. Folks have to self-report things of that nature, but yes, there has been an uptick, unfortunately.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you guys do again.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hackman?
And I would just like to piggyback on that, if I may. Based on what you said, and I know you're in communication with Allentown and Bethlehem, and the families you mentioned, is this in part because in the Lehigh Valley right now we have a real lack of true affordable housing? I mean, we've all seen the numbers, and most of us are saddened by the fact that the rents in and of themselves and leases have just gone so high. And even when someone talks about affordable housing, the numbers they're quoting from statistics are beyond the reach of many people who are now part of the new homeless, because as you said, you had people you knew, but has that is since something, and when they talk to you, is that a key in what you're seeing?
Without a doubt, Mr. Heckman. And, one of the things that our church is fortunate to do because of you all is to serve in the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the ERAP program. And every day there are folks who are coming to the church who are at risk for homelessness or are deemed homeless, and that's why they're coming to us, sir. And so, the lack of affordable housing has a lot to do with it. The other piece is mental health, but that's for another evening, if you invite us back. But certainly affordable housing. Yes, indeed.
Yes, well, thank you both. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Just one thing in closing. Your plans, you have further plans coming down the road. I understand that you would like to level that mountain out and try to get affordable housing. And I'm sure we just opened up some affordable housing on the south side with passing Mr. John Robinson's estate. So you guys are in the forefront of trying to get affordable housing in the city of Easton. I just want to make sure council knew about that.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Thank you for being here to answer our questions. Much appreciated. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Thank you. Call for the vote on the amended resolution.
Thank you.
Mr. Lott?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Tina, will we need to change the name on the Grow Norco then? Will this reappear? No, we'll fix it. All right, thank you. Is there any other new business to discuss?
We have to vote on the actual thing, right?
We just did.
We just did.
I thought we voted on the amendment.
We did that before. We just voted on the thing.
We did that first.
All right. I'm just making sure we got everything.
I got it covered, thank you. Any other new business to discuss? Any council committee reports? Mr. Heckman?
Before the meeting, we had a Human Services Committee. It was very informative. I don't know what to say about it other than you got your sheet about Gracedale. They seem to be rebounding and coming back. I'm very happy about that. And I think part of that has in part with us working with the administration and getting that extra bonus money out there. And I think we're seeing things bounce back, the rating as well. We did get some information about children, youth, and families and jobs, and just in general. We got a report from Veterans Affairs, which was a good report. They're doing more outreach, thankfully. And the opioid, which we discussed here briefly, that money's coming in that the executive alluded to. And that's basically where I'm at with that. That was the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lott?
We had a Economic Development Committee meeting earlier today. We discussed Bethlehem Emergency Shelter. They explained to the committee what they do for the community. We also had Miller Keystone Blood Center, same thing. They explained to us, gave a presentation on what they deliver to our community. And then finally, we had the Shiloh Church with the shelter that we just acted on. It was an amazing committee meeting in the fact that you have some amazing groups of people that really dedicate themselves to the betterment of this county. And it was an honor to chair these three groups, because they are all about giving back to the community and helping our community grow and prosper. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Any liaison reports?
So there's an airport board meeting. I wanted to report that this is the highest airport traffic on record, which, is kind of amazing given the circumstances and bouncing back. The airport's doing really well. It's at pre-pandemic levels in its net income, so it's really doing great, and they're a lot closer in reaching full staffing. And we voted on several things for bid for Hangar 7 and also leasing on 6 to 7 acres, which will be used for Cisco. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports?
Can I ask
Mr.
a question? Any updates on Braden Air Park?
No. Not at this time. But if you have a specific question, I would be happy to bring that to the airport board.
Yeah, John.
Well, how is there's a new fixed-based operator. How is that developing? Has any information come back from them, or?
You can ask.
I think it's just progressing along. They put in a new leasing office there. They're getting that finished up, and I think there's a person that they have there who's involved with the flight school and the FBO, but I think that they're still talking about how they're going to progress.
Yeah, I mean, Tara's liaison, being on it, I agree. But certainly, at the next meeting, bring up, can you flesh out Braden for us?
Yeah,
and we'll
I'll ask
come
Tara.
back, and I'm sure Tara would be thrilled to give you a full report.
I
Braden
take
Airport.
notes. I will put it in my book.
Thank
And I
you.
will make sure I get that
appreciate
information
your
back to
effort.
you.
Thank you.
Any other liaison reports? Any clerk reports?
Nothing.
Solicitor report? No. Just a quick heads up, Linda and I did begin the discussion of when we will be having budget hearings. And for those of you who like to plan ahead, I do believe our first one will be on October 5th. Linda will send it out. It's so close, that's why I'm mentioning it. But, so you're not caught off guard. And that'll be, they're usually Wednesdays at 4:30, so I'll discuss it with the newer members of council. Any,
She was going to say something.
go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say, it's basically every Wednesday, except when there's a meeting, then it's postponed. It should finish up sometime in the middle of November.
You will enjoy it, John.
It's so much fun. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Did I do?
What? Yes, he did. He had to go.
What do you want? What'd you say?